Issue number 2 of Mersey Beat was published on July 20th in 1961. Now, Brian Epstein had taken Mersey Beat from the very first issue, and so he couldn't believe how it sold out so quickly in his store. He kept ordering it the first week, and by issue number 2, he wanted 144 copies of Mersey Beat. The entire front cover was Beatles signed recording contract and the whole story of them recording in Germany. Now this was dated July 20th, 1961, and Brian Epstein was so impressed he wanted to know all about them. And this was months and months and months before he came out with the alleged story that he'd never heard of them until this guy came into his store later that year. In fact, Brian was so impressed with Mersey Beat, it became my record reviewer with issue number 3. But this is the story that led Brian Epstein to discover the Beatles. And the photograph is by Astrid Kirchner. Paul McCartney brought this back from Hamburg for me with permission to use it. And the first published photograph by Astrid, who was one of the most brilliant photographers ever of the Beatles. Then I go on to write about groups like Ray and the Delrinas and all the others, Frank Knighton and the Barons, who had an entertainment guide of all the different coffee clubs, jive halls, jazz clubs, restaurants. All the places where the groups played were called jive halls or jive hives. The word beat was never used in terms of the music. The word beat was generally used in terms of beatniks, or the beat generation of America, or beat poets, never in contact with the music until after Mersey Beat became established. Royston Ellis, who was there with me when John and Stuart thought of the name of the Beatles, has an article about his Big Beat Scene book. Virginia's got her Mersey Roundabout column, and the first item on it, Richard Starkey, more familiar to readers as Ringo Starr, drummer for the Hurricanes, came to Liverpool for the day on July 8th to celebrate his 21st birthday. The group returned to Butlins on the Sunday and then ended their season there in September. And this was at a time when generally people regarded the Hurricanes as a bigger group locally than the Beatles. We have new clubs opening like the Odd Spot Club in Bowl Street where the Beatles appeared. Then we have, these are the famous fashion notes by Priscilla. These are the notes I had when I was sitting trying to think of a name with the first issue when I was writing about it. And I thought, oh, as she signed that piece she wrote for me. And I looked at it, white, grey, red, black. She was writing about colours, and I thought, oh, it must be black. And that's why I called it Cilla. Peggy Lee, an article about Peggy Lee. I really like Peggy Lee, and I suggested in one of my editorials that Paul McCartney should listen to some Peggy Lee records, and in fact I think he introduced some of Peggy Lee's numbers into their Act in the Cabin. And then articles about the Temperance 7 and the Swinging Blue Jeans. But this is quite historic, because this is, looking at the date, looking at the facts, this is how Brian Epstein first came to know the Beatles.